Opposites dissolve, what was lost can come home again to ourselves, to what we always were, as if we never left, but much more aware of the beauty, more aware of the love and this dance of creation, the dance into life, more aware of the beauty, more aware of the love and this dance of creation, the dance into life, and back home again, forever in the arms of love, forever safe and secure, forever we are always here, forever in the arms of love, forever we are always here, forever. In the heart of in the light of truth, all things are one. Opposites dissolve, what was lost can come home again to ourselves, to what we always were, as if we never left, but much more aware of the beauty, more aware of the love and this dance of creation, the dance into life, more aware of the beauty, more aware of the love and this dance of creation.
Namaste.
You're welcome.
Welcome to our weekly online satsang. We're very glad that you're here. Satsang is simply a Sanskrit word that means community of truth, which sounds kind of highfalutin. But really, you could translate that as spiritual community. Whenever two or more people who are on the path of awakening come together, there's a satsang. And it's a very, very important part of the process of awakening and transformation, to gather together with others who are on the path also. We strengthen one another. Our light is multiplied. When we come together in the presence, the divine inspires in a special way that only happens when we come together as a family. The Flowering Heart Satsang, it's not an organization, there's no membership. We are people that come from different teachers, different traditions, different backgrounds from all over the world. People join these satsangs from the other side of the planet. What we have in common is the flowering of the heart and the process of awakening and transformation in the flowering of the heart. So that's happening for you, or you wouldn't have found your way here. So please, welcome. Know that throughout the satsang, we are sharing with you what we call the Flowering Heart Blessing. We could call it by another name. We could call it, in Sanskrit, we could call it Hridaya Vikasa Diksha. But that just means Flowering Heart Blessing. So we're keeping it simple. About a little over 6 years ago, the divine showed us a new form of blessing. I mean, it's not new to earth. It's been around forever. But for us, the divine said, this is the form of blessing that I want you to share now. Suzanne and I have been involved for decades in numerous different kinds of divine energy transmissions. This one, the divine poured it into us one day, and our hearts just exploded. Hence, Flowering Heart Blessing. But it specifically catalyzes the process of awakening. It enhances it and speeds it up if you're already in that process. It'll take you ever more deeply into awakening, which is not a destination, but an eternal process of expansion. But it's very heart-centered. And it focuses really on awakening right away, the awareness of the indwelling presence of the divine, by whatever name you choose to call it. The God within, the Paramatma, the light. There's so many names that different traditions give it. But at the heart of every human being is the divine source itself. The Supreme Being dwells within us at the center of our being, and it is actually our true self. There's just one of us here. You and me and all of us are one. And that being that we are, our true self, is enlightenment itself. It doesn't need to be enlightened, it already is. It doesn't need to attain divine union or God realization, because it is the divine. It is fully divine and fully awake. So this approach to the path of awakening points to diving deep inside and connecting with our true essence, rather than looking on the outside. Who can give it to me? Where can I go? I'll pay for it. Take me through a process and transmit it to me. Give me enlightenment. Give me God realization. Now, many of us have benefited a great deal from teachers and communities that offer many wonderful spiritual practices and transmissions. Thing is, oftentimes we become stuck looking to someone or something on the outside to give us what we already are. See, the light you see reflected in your teacher, in your guru's face, is you. The outer world is a mirror, a reflection of the inner world. So the light you see in any enlightened or awakened being or saint is a mirror reflecting to you your true awakened divinity. Sooner or later, we're called to turn our vision and look back into the source within and go, oh wow, it was here all the time. And that frees us from an excessive dependence on things and people and places outside of ourselves and brings us right to the source. The Flowering Heart blessing seems to really zero in on that right away. And we love it. And the Divine said, it's grace. This is my gift. This does not belong to any master, or it belongs to everyone, but it doesn't belong specifically, it does not come through a specific master or avatar or saint. Certainly not an organization or a hierarchy. It comes directly from the divine source as a gift. And the Divine emphasized this is a gift of grace. Grace is something that's given out of unconditional love. It's not earned or deserved or merited. It's simply given out of pure love. So the Divine said, give it away. Don't charge for this. And tell people that when they receive it and connect with this energy, they are instantly initiated to be able to pass it on to others. See, it's really the Divine doing it. We're not doing anything except offering ourselves, opening ourselves as instruments of divine grace. And the Divine uses us and pours that blessing through. And when I mean us, I mean you too. So please join us, all of you who are with us tonight, in sending the blessing of channeling, of flowing the blessing out to everyone that's with us this evening and those that will be tuning into this in the days ahead. If you come to us from another spiritual community or teacher that has its own form of Shaktipat or Diksha or blessing, if it's from the source, the divine source, and its purpose is to catalyze awakening and the flowering of the heart, please feel free to share your blessing with all of us throughout the satsang as well. And it's going on right now. You're soaking in it. So if you need to be refreshed and recharged and uplifted, you can just begin to soak it up right now and drink it in. We're so glad you're here. We're going to open the fellowship to questions and answers for the next however long it goes. If you have any questions about the spiritual journey, about awakening, about divine union, about meditation, about your experiences or something you're just puzzling over, please ask, because everyone will benefit and the Divine will give us inspiration that will bring clarity and insight to all of us here tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. And I see, the first question is asking for blessings for my brother. So Yogi Bhadrapala, yes, we certainly are doing that right now by intention, and we will do it a little later on in the satsang. We send blessings with strong intention for the particular needs that you've brought with you here tonight, for you or for another person. And so we'll certainly be sending and asking the Divine to help your brother. And thank you. And he says, you both look beautiful. Okay, let's see. Ekaterina says, I want to say thanks because I got a very good roll in a Mexican soap tomorrow. I have an interview with the producer. I feel it's because the grace you give me each Monday. Thank you so much. Well, we're a part of it, but it's divine grace. Yeah, we're just so fortunate to be able to serve as vessels and help you and others to connect to the grace that you need. So that's really good news. Glad to hear that. Let's see. Okay. Well, while I wait for your questions, which I'm sure will flow at the right moment, I'll share with you something kind of special that happened a little bit. I connected earlier this week with an old friend of mine that I went to college with, that I've not spoken to in over 45 years. 46 years, probably, to be more exact. And this dear friend of mine 46 years ago that I've not spoken to all these years. He has, for the last 40 years, been an attorney in Los Angeles. Let's see, we have another attorney friend. He's a 92-year-old retired attorney from Detroit. And he tells us the two worst people on earth are politicians and lawyers. Now, which is funny, and he can say it because he's an attorney. A beautiful soul. But I had no idea where my friend was in life, except serving as an attorney for 40 years in Los Angeles. I mean, wow. And he responded to my email and said, the day before you wrote to me, I woke up from a dream and I reached to the pad of paper and the pen I keep next to my bed on the nightstand, and I wrote down, "Are you kind?" Now, yeah, it's a great question to ask yourself in the middle of the night, but the letter that I sent him has my signature line that says, "However awakened you are, has your heart flowered? Are you kind?" The outer world is a reflection of the inner world. If we want to change the world, we must begin with ourselves, with the flowering of the heart. When we begin to experience the full content of each moment without any resistance, then and join together with others around the world whose hearts are flowering, the infinite light of love, the divine light of love, will flood the world. Anyway, I'm sure he read that line. So it's so interesting that the day before that connection took place, he wakes up in the middle, out of a dream in the night and writes, "Are you kind?" And then, without saying the rest of what he shared with me a little bit about his life at this point and his dreams, he finished by saying, "The Tao Te Ching still sits next to my pen and paper on my nightstand, and I'm often aware of you in the place between breaths." Now, I didn't expect that, We talk a lot about the space between the breaths, because that space between the inhale and the exhale, between the exhale and the next inhale, for just an instant, or for as long as it lasts, that space between the breaths is an open door into infinity, into boundless awareness. And people are beginning to discover that. Also, we could say the space between thoughts. Between one thought arising and dissolving and the next thought is an instant where there's no thought. There's an open door to the infinite. Between images that come and go, between all the phenomena we experience, this phenomenon, the next one, for a moment, everything dissolves into the empty, open space of pure awareness. That's a pretty deep place. And I mean, we haven't spoken in 46 years, and he's often aware of us in the place between breaths, and the Tao Te Ching sitting there. What brought us together, I think, so many years ago was the Tao. And he was a person that I did Qigong with many, many years ago. He's one of the first people I ever taught the Taoist elixir system that I studied and have been teaching for 50 years, going on 50 years. Anyway, what that says to me, other than that's mystical and supernatural and wonderful, is that people on this planet are awakening spontaneously. It's happening. I mean, this friend was a very beautiful and high being 46 years ago, but, I mean, I don't know if he's ever been to any retreats or meditation retreats or corporate. He's been pretty busy practicing law, all these years and being the senior member of his own law firm. And yet somehow he found time to discover the space between breaths and to be aware of a brother that he hasn't spoken to in 46 years, often in that place. that gives me so much encouragement. Because I think many of us think that unless unless we're connected with a certain guru or a certain saint or avatar, that we're not going to awaken, and that people need to go through a specific connection to enlightenment to be able to get it. I could name several. There's not just one. There's several groups like that and teachers like that on the planet. And the thing is, I'm suspecting that this came to my friend just from the universe, just from growing and evolving as a human being. That's something we're all doing. Nothing stays the same. Everyone on this planet is growing and evolving. And I suspect that we're all growing and evolving into the space between breaths and flowering into that awareness. Whether we're a postman or a lawyer or a doctor or a gardener, you don't have to be someone that goes to India 5 times a year or does several Zen sessions every year. It's a living Zen master said, and I love this, he said, enlightenment is not something that can be attained through effort. It's actually not something that can be given by somebody else. I mean, I know there are exceptions to that with some of the great masters, but he said enlightenment actually is an accident. It's just that people who have a committed and regular spiritual practice are accident prone. So it's very, very good to have a regular meditation practice, to integrate whatever spiritual practices are working for you, but to realize, just like the flowering heart blessing, enlightenment awakening is a pure gift of grace. Something that Buddha only attained himself when he quit trying. He tried it all, did it for years. Finally, nothing worked, sat down under the Bodhi tree and gave up. In 9 days, he was fully enlightened, and it's changed the world. What did he do? He quit. The ego quit seeking. And the Buddha nature could flower. So, I just wanted to share that with you because it was one of the very high points of this week for me. Okay. Vandana writes, Namaste. How do we release old patterns, behavior, whenever we recognize it? Thanks. Well, the first step is recognizing it. We have a friend, another spiritual teacher who's well known. His sort of phrase he's really known for is, to see is to be free. At least it's the beginning. If we don't see unconscious programs and patterns and things that are behaviors that are being generated by unconscious charges, emotional charges and patterns, then we're stuck. The beginning of freedom is to see it. Now, how do you see something you're unconscious of? That's where grace comes in, see?
You did say after you see it.
I know that.
Okay.
I'm affirming that. Actually, you have, if you're recognizing the old patterns and seeing how they are expressing in repetitive behaviors, that is a hugely powerful step, because they begin to lose their juice immediately. When they come up into consciousness, charges that, emotional charges that fuel our patterns and behaviors begins to discharge. When it comes into awareness, it begins to discharge. But you're not just talking about charges and energies, you're talking about patterns that have been programmed in, that could have come from previous lives, it could have come from when you were in the womb, it could have come in early childhood, before you were even aware. on an intellectual level. So you see it. You can replace those patterns and behaviors with new behaviors and begin to build new patterns into your consciousness by meditating on truth. We're talking about stuff that's deeply rooted in the unconscious. So we really need grace, the grace of the divine presence. I think you've got something to add.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I saw your gears turning. So feel free to jump in at any time. But we can deconstruct those old patterns by becoming fully aware of them. Then they are no longer unconscious patterns, and we have a choice in the moment. And it's more of a matter than just releasing them. It's a matter of really deconstructing them and replacing them with new patterns that are inspired by divine truth. Very helpful in doing that is meditating on the divine teachings of great enlightened beings, of divine beings, whatever your tradition happens to be. I mean, if it's the Vedic tradition, to meditate on the Bhagavad Gita is a powerful tool to actually restructure your mind, your thinking. But it just happens as the heart flowers, and as because all of these patterns and behaviors are rooted in the separate self. As the separate self is dissolved in the process of the flowering of higher consciousness within us, those patterns and behaviors will be dissolved. It takes perseverance. So, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think as I've been growing on my spiritual path, that I'm more thoughtful and reflective and coming from the heart more throughout the day, and that enables me to see when the ego and the mind are kicking in and trying to take control. A lot of that, the programs and the charges and the emotions and everything were triggered or imprinted from like a strong situation or emotion or something that made us feel out of control or unloved or whatever the issue is. So when we start to recognize when we have those patterns and we have those programs, to just go into the heart and I like to ask, what would the heart do? What would my higher self do? What would unconditional love do? And that makes you notice when you're out of your element, you're out of balance, where you're experiencing a strong charge. And if we can actually see that is coming from ego and the mind, then it's easier to get back into the heart and respond in a different way. And once we start doing that, we start to see it more and more frequently, so that we are responding instead of reacting.
Great. I love it. One thing that won't work is resistance. Resistance is like the juice of the ego itself. And so when we see an old pattern or behavior starting to manifest, our tendency and our programming is to resist it. But what we need to do is fully embrace it and love that. And all I would add to the beautiful advice that Suzanne was giving about dropping in the heart and letting the heart guide you, is when you see an old pattern and a behavior starting to emerge, don't resist it. When you fully experience it, will shed. The word for that in the Hindu tradition is samskara shuddhi. Some scars are like scar tissue on the soul that needs to be shed. And shuddhi means to cleanse, to wash away. It's when we fully embrace and experience it. And there's a right time to do it. Not when you're starting to act it out in public. But when you do find yourself enmeshed in it, invoke the presence. It just takes a fraction of a second to, in your heart, turn to the divine and invoke the presence and ask for help. That absolutely works.
And what's really funny is when we get out of our own way, things actually work so much more smoothly because we're getting our input and our guidance from the divine source itself. And so often we just get caught up in our day-to-day business, and there's a lot of mind there, there's a lot of ego there, we want to be right, we want to be in control. And as we start to soften and live from the heart more, we're actually a lot more efficient. It takes less energy, it takes less strife, it takes less conflict and chaos to get our things done that we need to throughout the day, because we're coming from a place of direct knowing and guidance and wisdom, as opposed to trying to figure everything out ourselves, because the divine is infinitely more intelligent than we are. And that's what I meant by when we get out of our own way and start to live from the heart in divine guidance.
Vandana writes, I am able to recognize it sometime, but I also see myself been caught with old behavior at times. And but you're seeing that is grace. So, but it's true that the ego is so tricky, or however you've learned to look at this, the mind is so tricky that it tries to keep us from seeing what it's doing. So as we grow in awareness, we start to see through it. I mean, there's some great teachings, some great spiritual teachers have passed on some wonderful insights, and by receiving the teachings of enlightened beings, and you begin to get insight into the way the ego works, the way the mind works. But to catch it in the moment is very, very tricky, because it's very elusive. And so the real answer is awakening. It is to awaken to pure consciousness, and to escape from that deranged consciousness of the mind and the ego.
It's funny, I've been doing kind of a little meditation on that lately when I'm driving. And I mean, if you want to see people's egos acting out, just pay attention to how other people are driving and how you're driving. I mean, there's some people that just have to be first, and if there's an opening in the lane next, they'll have to be first. Then there are other people that, a lot of people do this, they just speed up to red lights and then they have to slam their brakes on. And I'm thinking, they're not being very conscious. I mean, you still have to wait for the cars in front of you. You have to wait for the light to turn green, you know. You're not going to get there any faster passing all of these cars, and then we end up right next to each other in lane to lane. And then noticing myself when I feel that urge to want to pass a car or to, you know, make some kind of a move that's coming from ego. But once you start to really pay attention to your own behaviors and how you're reacting to the world, it makes it easier to have compassion for others that are going through a hard time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yogi Bhadrapala adds, my brother has been bipolar, mentally unstable since he was 12 years old. Now he's 56 years old. We have no idea where he is physically. I keep envisioning him safe. Good. I know his soul is whole. Mental illnesses are so confusing. How do I find peace? I have everything, but I don't have my brother. My heart aches. Mental illnesses are sad.
Yes. Keep holding him in prayer. Seeing, you know, white light of protection around him, and just keep up your blessings and your prayers, because we have no idea how powerful of a ripple effect our prayers can have on one person. So definitely keep sending prayers, and you could also just, you know, keep requesting that the divine brings him back home.
Part of your question, how do I find peace? Genuine peace only comes from one place, and that's the divine presence. A Christian scripture I like very much says, do not be anxious. Don't be worried. Don't have anxiety about anything. But in everything, through worship, adoration of the divine, together with asking for what you want. Let your requests be made known to God. So don't be anxious about anything. How do you do that? Another place it says, roll the whole weight of that burden into the hands of the divine. Now it's a learning curve, because you gotta trust the divine so deeply that when you put your brother in the hands of the divine, you could completely trust the divine and let go. So be anxious about nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. So you adore, ask for the help for your brother, and then before you see anything, you don't know where he is physically, you begin to offer thanksgiving. Be anxious about nothing and everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God that passes all understanding will mount a protective guard around your heart and your mind. And it's a great promise, and I've been using it for many, many years. It works. But when we get caught up in the anxiety, the worry for a loved one especially, I know, it aches. So the challenge there, the divine's saying, don't worry, approach me through worship and adoration, ask for what you need, and then begin to offer gratitude and thanksgiving, seeing it done. See, you got that down, see it done. And when you make that connection and it's happening and you're releasing it to the divine in that way, this peace begins to flood your heart and your mind and create this protective shield around you. And it says it's peace that passes all understanding, meaning that it makes no sense to be at peace when you still don't know where your brother is. It doesn't make any sense when your heart aches for him being gone, you know? But somehow, when we're that deeply rooted in faith in the benevolence and the goodness of the divine, there's this inner peace. And it comes from the inside, not from our circumstances lining up. That there will always be one problem after another in the outer world. But it is possible to have a peace that passes all understanding, always. So, hope that helps a little. And yes, mental illnesses are sad, and I do empathize very much. But attempt to really release it into the hands of the divine, to see him safe and whole, mentally whole, spiritually whole, physically whole. And every time that worrisome thought comes to you, is he though? As you say, thank you, divine, thank you for keeping him, thank you for guarding him as you've promised, thank you. It really does work. Okay, I think that's probably all we have time for in terms of questions tonight. So we're going to move to the next stage of our journey, powerful blessings by intention. So I'd like to invite you to, I played two songs at the beginning which were really beautiful. The first one was Buddha Medicine, Om Mani Padme Hum. And the second one was called Forever. And they're from a CD called Loving Gaia. And it's a CD by our dear friend, a very gifted sacred musician, Angelica Schaefer. If you like it, all her stuff is great. She's got dozens of CDs and sacred music from all traditions, Christian, Sufi, Hindu, Buddhist, and others. And it's so graced. Angelica
Healing Music.
Angelica Healing Music. Angelica with a K. Okay. But if you would now, just close your eyes and dive into your spiritual heart. And there, deep within your heart, we invite you to invoke the presence. How do you do that? You simply welcome the divine presence that is your true center to flower within you, to blossom within you, to fill your heart, to fill every place in your being, spirit, soul, and body, your relationships, to flood your life with the light of grace. It doesn't need to be eloquent. You don't need to convince this amazing presence. Simply invoke it, invite it, welcome it. This being is pure, unconditional love. It is infinitely powerful, all-knowing and all-wise. It loves you exactly as you are. This presence does not hold back from you because you're not good enough, because you haven't accumulated enough good karma. Nothing like that. This presence yearns to liberate you, to awaken you, to flood you with light and life and love and peace and grace, to heal you through and through, to heal your relationships, all of your connections in the outer world. It already knows what you need and wants to give it to you, so simply open yourself to receive the flowering heart blessing. Drink it in. Receive the grace that you need. Envision us all sitting in a circle, a blessing circle together. You could lift up your hands with your palms open, facing forward, and let us all invite the presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through us to all the others in the circle. Just offer yourself to the divine and the grace begins to flow. And know that as you do this, the grace is flowing through all your brothers and sisters in the circle back to you as well. Whatever problems, needs you've brought with you tonight, just put them in the center of the circle as we all take a strong intention together that these needs, that these people, that these situations that are being placed in the circle tonight are being flooded with miraculous grace. Yogi's brother, we place him in the middle of the circle. We see him safe, filled with light, healed in his mind and soul. Receive it as done, and we offer gratitude and thanksgiving for his liberation. Whatever needs everyone else has brought with you tonight, they didn't need to be spoken. The presence knows exactly what's going on and what needs to be done. So release it to the divine as we all invite the flowering heart blessing to flood your situation, your life. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Now you can relax. Relax your hands. And put them in your lap with your palms turned upward, open. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me. Just keep looking at least one of our eyes as we begin the light meditation. In this meditation, the divine presence floods us and begins to pour oceans of grace and light and love through me and Suzanne, through every pore of our being to you, especially through our eyes, for they are the doorways of the soul. All you need to do is just keep looking. And the light streams in through your eyes, into your heart, fanning the flames of divine love, awakening and transformation within you. Just let it happen and receive. close your eyes now. Meditate with us just a few more minutes as the grace settles within us. Meditating as long as you'd like to, or find a nice place nearby to lie down in Shavasana. That means to lie on your back with your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides with your palms open, turned upward, and just dissolve in the presence and gratitude. We love you very much.
Much love, light, and blessings until we connect again.
Until the next time, the divine within us sees the divine in you.